Hey guys, Palletgeek here, and this is a very tiny e-bike. If you follow my Instagram, you probably know that I bike a lot. When traveling, I'll usually throw my kick scooter in the car, but I started looking at folding bikes for a more versatile alternative. This little e-bike kept popping up on my Amazon searches, and I always thought that the idea of an e-bike seemed interesting. So I YOLO'd it and clicked buy now. So that raises the question, did I screw up by buying such a tiny bike? The bike packs quite a comprehensive set of features. On the right side we have the keyed ignition, throttle, and speedometer. The left handlebar packs controls for a very nice bright set of LED headlights, and a button for an absolutely ridiculous sounding horn. The running lights at the rear flash when braking and help to alert drivers to your presence when on the road. Working our way down the frame, we find a shock absorber module, which can easily be adjusted to suit the rider weight and makes for a much more comfortable ride. The same unfortunately can't be said about the included seat, which I personally found to be a bit uncomfortable. I was happy to see the name brand Kenda tires, along with a nice set of disc brakes on both wheels. The rear wheel is where the magic happens, as this houses the 350 watt hub motor inside. While the frame itself does not fold, the entire e-bike is very small and not terribly heavy. The handlebars easily fold down, and the pedals fold in to make it a bit easier to lay on its side. This makes it small enough to comfortably fit in the trunk of my 2011 Chevy Impala, and a lot less cumbersome if you choose to bring it inside the house for charging. The included charger is just a small power brick which plugs into the rear of the bike and has an indicator that turns green when the bike is fully charged. The bike arrived almost fully assembled, safely packed in foam blocks. I'm usually pretty picky about bike tuning, but everything seemed to be assembled very well. Even the brakes were properly set up, which is more than I can say about some department store bike disc brakes I've seen. The only simple tweak I made was to loosen the chain tension, but even this probably would have worn in just fine. Overall, the bike looks gorgeous. The sharp looks are honestly a large part of why I picked this, and I was not disappointed to see it in person. The paint has a sparkly white pearl finish underneath a very uniform clear coat, with no runs or imperfections. I expected the accent trim to be simple black decals, but even this is embedded into the paint job under the clear coat. Everything down to the welds and seams just looks great. On my maiden voyage, I decided to take the bike out on my usual 20-mile route, using a mix of pedal assist and throttle. The quality of the ride was pretty good, and my worries about it handling goofy with the tiny tires quickly faded as I found that even at its top speed, it felt just as stable as my full-size bike. I was surprised to see that I could even ride it no-handed. The motor seems torquey, but generally only topped out around 13 to 14 miles an hour. Battery life was better than expected, and I only used about a third of the battery throughout the 10 miles of pedal assist, with an additional 10 miles of motor-only usage. Unfortunately, due to the limited gear ratio and tiny wheels, the speed that you can pedal at is absurdly slow, only around 7 to 8 miles an hour. It was tolerable on a walking trail, but I was forced to use throttle on the road. I'm also fairly tall at around 6 foot, and found the seat height to be far too short. I wound up ordering a taller seat post, which made the bike feel much better to ride. I also found that the seat was a little bit uncomfortable, so I opted for using my own. The Amazon listing claims a top speed of 18 miles an hour, but a quick check with the wheel off the ground confirms that the speed is limited to 25 kilometers per hour, or only around 15 miles an hour. I think that this was a misprint, as the listing corrects elsewhere that the speed is limited to 25 kilometers an hour, but this was quite misleading. The bike also claims to have 3 distinct modes, but I'll be darned if I could tell any difference between them. All 3 modes provided the exact same amount of pedal assistance and allowed me to use throttle in addition to that. While not a deal breaker, I was also a bit disappointed to find that there was no documented ability to switch the display to show miles per hour instead of kilometers per hour. I did find a somewhat cryptic PDF explaining the programming mode, which can be accessed by holding the mode button while turning on the bike. There was unfortunately no unit setting, but because the speed calculation is based on the wheel size, I can effectively trick the computer into converting to miles per hour by entering a smaller wheel size. 1 kilometer is equal to 0.621 miles, so if we multiply our 14-inch wheel by that factor, we find we need an 8.69-inch wheel. I set parameter 2, the wheel size, to 8 inches, and I set parameter 3, the wheel multiplier, to 1.08. This was a success, and despite the label showing kilometers per hour, it does indeed calculate the speed in miles per hour now. At this point, the only real problem that remained was the horrid pedal gearing. I wanted to replace the stock 16-tooth freewheel sprocket with a smaller one, but the only commonly available smaller freewheel sizes are meant for BMX hubs, which are too small to thread onto this hub. The other option is to get a larger chainring, which means replacing the whole crankset. Though it's an expensive option, I was able to greatly increase the gear ratio, going from a 44-tooth sprocket all the way up to a 56-tooth sprocket. I needed a slightly longer chain as well, but this swap went really well, and I think it looks a lot nicer than the stock hardware. While I had the bike in the shop, I also checked out the ESC and wiring. Nothing too amazing, just a fairly generic looking controller, but I will admit the cable management and mounting was very well done. Unfortunately, not all was perfect at this point. As I had feared, the pedal assist was now miscalibrated because of the new gearing. While there is no software correction I could find for this, I noticed that the pedal sensor uses 6 magnets. I did a brief test with the chain off and confirmed that this particular speed controller does indeed match the pedal cadence to the wheel speed, so I figured an additional magnet might trick the controller into using more motor assist. I tried to find a 7-magnet disc, but nobody seems to make one, so I took some measurements and 3D printed my own using TPU. Thankfully, my theory was right. The pedal assistant ratio is now increased by 7/6. This is less than the increase in the gear ratio, but I actually preferred the way that this felt, as I felt that the stock pedal assist was far too strong, but now it seems much better matched to my cadence. After all these modifications, the bike is much more enjoyable to ride. My wife tested this on a very windy day on a 30+ mile trip, and we still had a third of the battery left after using quite a bit of help from the motor, with the last 5 to 6 miles being throttle only. I'm much happier with the bike at this point, but if you still think I look like a doofus riding it, be sure to click that like button to let me know that you got a laugh. Well, so as of editing this video, I've currently got 425 miles on this, and it's been honestly a pretty good little commuter. I use it just about every week just to kind of hop down to the farmer's market and just go on little errand runs. But to make it a better little commuter, I decided to add some of these little bags on the front and the back. The front bag is actually designed for like an electric scooter, but they both work very well. If you like those, I've got the links in the description, along with everything else that I've used on this bike. I really appreciate the clicks on those because it really does help out the channel. So after all this, how do I really feel about the bike? Well, I've got a theory that this was never really meant to be an e-bike at all, but an electric scooter. I think with how popular electric bikes are getting, it was really easy to just slap a set of pedals on a simple electric scooter frame and call it an e-bike. I think the pedals were meant to help get it started, and then be used as foot pegs the rest of the ride. The inclusion of functional pedals means that this may legally be classified as a bicycle, making it road legal in many states, and therefore it could be ridden in some areas where scooters might otherwise be banned or frowned upon. It's a shame that Sailnovo settled for this decision, as I feel that a few simple modifications made mine into a functional, portable bicycle. I doubt that many others would have put the time and effort into making all these modifications, so I think that Sailnovo could really improve this product with 3 simple tweaks. 1. It needs a taller gear ratio, somewhere between 56 and 58 teeth for the front sprocket. Second, the inclusion of a taller optional seat post in the box would allow for both tall and short riders to have a comfortable ride. Third, I think that the software needs to be improved to allow unit conversions and to adjust pedal assist levels, or at the very least provide additional magnet discs to be able to tweak the assist ratio to your own liking. So ultimately, if you're looking for a really good electric scooter, I would highly recommend this. Unfortunately, if you're a taller rider and you're looking for a more serious bike, I have a hard time recommending this unless you're willing to go through with all the modifications. Or you could wait until they hopefully make a slightly revised version. Well, thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for my next video where I'll be showing off an even smaller, more ridiculous folding bike that I bought off of AliExpress a couple months ago, which I had lost all hopes of ever arriving until one day it just showed up a couple months later. Well, as always, thanks for watching, stay tuned for the next video.